Thank you, Jason. We're gonna get this party started off right. We got some heat today, man,
Oh boy,
and
lots of
the first
heat.
one's coming from Cookies. Berner actually sat down with Benzinga for a brief interview where he discussed some of the allegations. Right, so Cookies co-founder Gilbert Anthony Milam Jr., aka Berner's hands down one of the most accomplished and celebrated names in the legacy to legal era. Love him or hate him, there's no other brand that has done more than Cookies has in the lifestyle lane, completely taking a regional legacy favorite back in the early 2000s and flipping it 2 decades later into the household namesake it is today. Truly inspirational, but the heavy is the head that wears the crown. Berner and Cookies Empire has come under attack from multiple angles lately, leading the brand and its face, leaving investors and fans of the brand in a pivotal space where the rest of the industry gears up for whatever the next phase of legalization brings us. Per Benzinga, the Giants' legendary innovation and success has nonetheless been marred by a series of controversies that have raised questions about his ethical underpinnings and perhaps that of the entire industry. So this weekend, Berner uncharacteristically sat down with Benzinga's David Daxon to address the allegations, and here are a few of the highlights. Berner was first asked by Daxon to provide insight into the nature of the lawsuits filed against Cookies and how they impact the industry abroad. Berner responded that the lawsuits against Cookies allege that coercive tactics were employed to compel stakeholders into dividing or providing benefits and kickbacks to their company's executives. This has understandably cast a cloud over not only our company, but the entire industry. It's pivotal for us to address these allegations head on and reaffirm our commitment to ethical conduct. Very litigious of him. Polished. When Daxon
Mm-hmm.
brought up Berner's infamous Instagram response, we all saw in defense of Cookies, he asked the founder if he'd elaborate on his stance regarding the accusations. Berner responded that he wants to make it clear that they vehemently deny the claims. They're baseless and unfounded. We at Cookies are dedicated to running a transparent, ethical business where while we're fighting these legal battles, we also understand the importance of upholding our reputation in the industry. Daxon then asked Berner to explain Cookie's reasoning behind its expansion into children's apparel, which he said raised concerns about potential link between cannabis and children. Berner responded that their expansion into children's apparel was an attempt to diversify business lanes, but they've heard the concerns and criticism. He went on to say that they never intended to link cannabis with children and are reevaluating their approach to ensure it doesn't send the wrong message. And that Cookie's commitment to responsible business practices includes responding to valid criticism and making necessary adjustments. Then he went deeper. The text also alludes to disturbing allegations regarding your involvement in human trafficking and sexual exploitation, as well as derogatory comments in YouTube interviews. Can you provide perspective on these allegations? Berner strongly rejected the allegations in his response. They are not representative of my character or my values. Some past comments were taken out of context, and I deeply regret any offense they may have caused. My focus has always been on building reputable and ethical business in the cannabis industry. Daxon again. Given your ongoing legal battles and the controversies surrounding cookies, what do you believe the cannabis industry needs in terms of ethical reform, and why is it crucial at this juncture? These challenges have underscored the need for a profound ethical overhaul in the cannabis industry. We must ensure integrity and transparency to rebuild trust and credibility. The industry was built on the promise of innovation and progress, and it's our responsibility to uphold that promise by committing to ethical conduct. And Daxon's final question: how do you think your recent legal issues and controversies affect the broader cannabis industry's reputation, especially in terms of ethics and transparency? These issues have cast a shadow over the entire industry, Berner said. They emphasize the importance of ethical responsibility and transparency for all players in the cannabis sector. While I believe we can address and move past these challenges, it's an industry-wide reminder that ethical conduct is essential for long-term success. Now, whether you believe Berner's responses or not, you got to give him credit for sitting in the hot seat and taking these questions head on. If nothing else, the poised series of responses showed Milo Jr. as a much more polished businessman than many would give him credit to being, um, which should instill a bit more confidence in any investors that have might have been on the fence prior to the Q&A session. Of course, not all the allegations were addressed, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more from all sides as the cookies drama continues to play out in legal courtrooms across the nation and also in the court of public opinion as social media continues to be where the brand and its head honcho find themselves most comfortable. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you think? Was it a good idea for Berner to sit down with Benzinga here? Does it change the way you view the brand or Milam Jr. as its head honcho? I'm Rico Lemit, the dopest dad on the street. What you guys think?
Oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. This is such a piece of work. I mean, some of these answers just sound so canned, and I feel like half of them were written by the lawyer, and he's just reading off of a script.
You kind
I
of you
mean,
got
I'm not
that
surprised to hear
you're
you
gonna
respond that way, Jason.
yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's not possible, but I think that something that you said at the very beginning, Rico, I don't even know if it might have been the title of the article or what, but it is heavy as the head that wears the crown in this
Mm-hmm.
situation. I mean, the poor guy has somebody coming at him from every single angle at every single moment of the day. And he has a huge company that he's building
Yep.
simultaneously. I mean, can you imagine being in his shoes right now? Just take off your own personal feelings about him and just think one moment he's building this like empire business on a global scale, not just here in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got people coming for him every single day, internally even. I mean, there's discord. Make no mistake, there's definitely discord internal at that company right now, for sure.
Oh
How
yeah.
could there not be?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's a tough
so
position to be
I
in.
just want to, put it out there that I have a lot of empathy for the situation that he's in. It takes a lot of balls to get up and speak like this. I don't know. I don't know what his conversations with his lawyers are. I'm sure that he cleared this one with his attorney before he went and sat down, but
Yeah.
I agree
it's
with
just
that
hard,
part.
and I feel bad for him. I feel bad for him, no matter what. Even if these allegations are true, I feel bad for him because this has got to be hard to wake up and deal with every single day. Got to be tough.
Yep.
I can agree
Agreed.
with all of that, Mandy. I can agree with all of that. I still think
It's,
that.
it's, it's tough. It's tough when you're head of a multi-hundred million dollar company. I know they said that the valuation at one point was at $1 billion. I'm not sure that's where it is now,
That sounds like a
but
MedMen valuation.
when you're the head of a such a large entity and you continue, you were there from the start, and you continue to be the
Yeah.
face of that brand. People are gonna come for you. I mean, look at
Mm-hmm.
look at Mark Zuckerberg. He never stepped down as
You know,
CEO. He's been on
Yeah,
the
but
hot seat.
Mark Zuckerberg stole from the Winklevoss twins or something,
Yep.
right? So like his entire fortune was based on the idea of taking somebody else's ball and running with it. I think at least we can give Berner some credit for having an original concept and executing on it. Here's what I think about this. First of all, I think this article makes some poor assumptions around what happens at cookies somehow is indicative of the entire industry. And well,
Yeah.
this is a broader this and
right.
a broader that. How dare you ever take any single company in this industry and apply it to the industry? It doesn't matter whether it's the
Agreed.
biggest brand or the smallest brand. This is not the kind of industry where you can cast those kind of broad strokes and say this about that. The other thing that I thought was really silly was the notion that this interview could change an investor's perspective. Investors don't or shouldn't make their deployment choices based on a single interview. Hopefully, they're looking at the numbers, the fundamentals, the trends, yada, yada, yada. I don't think this interview moves the needle for an investor one iota. And then the other thing also is look, we know that getting out and getting in this interview was good for cookies. It's never bad to be in the spotlight. And absolutely, this wasn't just some spontaneous idea to go, well, maybe I'll expand out from Instagram and talk a little bit. The challenge I have is, man, there's so many lawsuits. And I got like an A or B, like a little devil and a little angel. The little devil on my shoulder says, look, you have that many lawsuits. At some point where there's smoke, there's fire. And then the little angel remembers that scene in American Gangster where Denzel Washington had somebody try to take an assassination attempt at him, and Armand Asante said, "Your success took a shot at you. Your success took a shot at you." And so
Great
I
line.
do believe, as a front runner in terms of visibility, that you're more likely to get some arrows shot at your back than if you're a no-name, nondescript, who are
Hold
they
on.
now brand.
Hold on, Yaro. Are
I
you
think
trying? Are
Yeah,
you trying to
you know
say?
the one. The one pushback I would say there, Yarrow, is cookies, as visible as they are, like it or not, they are going to cast a shadow,
Yeah.
in positive or negative way, on the industry because they are so known to the general public. Like you don't know really any other brand that has crossed as many boundaries as they have. So whatever happens to Cookie, a lot of people, like it or not, will form assumptions that that's just the way things are the rest of the industry.
I mean,
Yeah. And that
Yarrow,
makes it,
Yarrow,
yeah.
are you making the accusation that basically that Berner would be the equivalent of Trump in cannabis?
No, I would never denigrate Berner by comparing him to the orange Cheeto, but I would say that I think that, to your point, Rico, this idea of like, as goes cookies, so does the industry. Is this the biggest canary in the coal mine? I just think that if people are thinking about the industry in such simplistic terms, they should hire themselves a good consultant to understand the granular nuance with which to approach the fragmented and complicated cannabis industry. And I would never take a single entity and assume that somehow it's indicative of the broader space.
I agree with you. I just do not take a lot of the recent investors and a lot of the general public. They're not as well versed in what goes on in the broad industry as we are, and this is what they see. And they're
Well,
gonna
if you
Also,
climb Mount Everest, you hire
it's
a Sherpa, and if you get into the regulated cannabis industry, you should hire somebody who knows
agreed.
something more than just picking up their news, right? And so I think that Cookies has had a lot of challenges, but I don't know that there are many brands, to your point, that have hit that nexus of music, merch, and cannabis in the way that they have. And I think their challenges, I wouldn't say they're uniquely Cookies challenges, but I don't think they're something you can just assume applies to every brand, every part of the industry, yada yada.
Well, I have.
I'm
I'd like to add something here, you guys.
Go for it, man.
I've got nothing personal against Berner. He's a very nice gentleman. He's always been incredibly polite and approachable anytime I've seen him at an event. He's a nice guy. However, the Cookies organization has a clear history of unethical behavior. I have several friends who have lawsuits pending against them. They've lost some lawsuits for doing shady stuff with money recently. They've been selling weed-related clothing to kids. They've been violating all of the laws that kind of caused that one legislature to write that incredibly restrictive bill that just thankfully got vetoed. That was really aimed at her anger at Cookies and what Cookies how Cookies been flouting DCC regulations. You can just go through and the other thing is the branding is amazing. The branding was built on other farmers' flower. Berner's never grown weed in his life. Branding is a whole other thing. What you have is like subpar flower and a Cookies brand. You have the branding all over the place. You have them marketing in a way that to children that is causing the ire of the state. You have a history of unethical relationship, and so it just gets to a point where, like, it's cool they're industry stalwarts or whatnot, but we need to continue to criticize even positively or consciously criticize what's going on here in order that everybody can navigate better. And it's kind of funny that they're losing all these lawsuits that are racking up against them, and they're just starting to get all this negative press. And now Berner's got Masonic and my friend Marco's CGO and some other like upper level hash lord heads on his Instagram, and he's doing these interviews, and it's like this. It's funny because on the way driving over here, I was looking at Instagram and seeing all these folks that Berner's putting together for this hash hole day, and what it looks like is this full court press to kind of rebrand Cookies as getting them back in the industry by kind of just using their money to whoever they can at the top of the thing for a few parties. And look, we've got all the coolest guys are our friends, so like we're obviously good. What I would say is I challenge everybody here in the chat. I challenge every one of my correspondents to go this week and buy an eighth of weed in a Cookies bag and smoke it. And let's come back next week on Monday and let's just have a real talk about what you experienced smoking their weed. And let's just start there. Because for me, it's like I've dealt with a variety of every type of individual and organization in the cannabis economy. And number one, what matters to me is nonviolence and integrity. And then after that is cannabis quality. So if you're a big MSO and you've got more money than God and your dad is the reason why you're in business, if your weed is just stunning and your strains are inviting and approaching and your cannabis is smokable and smooth and psychoactive and pleasant, and then you're doing it right, and we can't hate on you just because you're a large organization. However, large or small, if you're an organization large or small, if you're not behaving well, You're serving shitty cannabis in a branded wrapper to the public and using your affinity with celebrities and music to sell subpar product. That kind of besmirches the whole industry, and I'm a big thumbs down to that.
He's so right. Matthew just hit the nail on the head around this selling merch to children stuff. Like, that's not even a gray area. Like, there's not an age restricted product in the world that should sell children's size merch. And I mean, it's like grooming. I mean, it's fucking sick. Right?
Oh,
like,
man, to hear you say that, Yarrow, that's a big one right there. Wow.
Get off the, like, I can see somebody smoking a joint in the boardroom at a conference table going, what about if we, and like, there should have been enough bright minds in the room to go, no, that was not a good idea. Let's order some lunch. And so the fact that that got off the starting block, it is, and I wouldn't universalize it to the company, but it is a really, really, really poor sign that there's not enough checks and balances in the decision room to create diversity of opinion and to de-risk a brand that's already successful enough. I mean, do you really need to sell Cookies baby merch? I don't think so.
No, and Yarrow, I completely and totally put 5 exclamation points behind that. That's the one other thing I was going to come back and comment on, is that, you know, that was a step too far. You can't spend all of these years claiming that your brand is not approachable to children and then go slap it on children's clothing.
And have a Zoomies contract.
You can't have both. You can't have both.
And I'm glad that he did bring that up, because I know it was rumor when we talked about it on the show months ago, and they vehemently denied it at the time. So I'm glad that he actually came clean on what happened with the children's clothing thing. And
so that denying it, Rico, is also a PR 101 rookie move, right? And so that's another example of poor decision making.
I'm glad that they addressed it, because it did come out later on that they were going into children's clothing, and I'm glad that he did address that part of the lawsuit too.
Yeah. You know, the other thing this story highlights is something that I think is really important. There's two major rivers of types of people that have been involved in cannabis from the beginning, and I've been doing weed shit since the 80s. There's one type that has contacted cannabis. It's made a personal change in their life, either medically, psychoactively, or spiritually, and they maintain growing cannabis. Yes, they make some money to fund their life and pay the rent and eat some food and take care of their family, but they're into cannabis for the benefits of cannabis. There's another lane that just wants to make money. And Cookies and Berner are a great example of this, because they don't give a fuck about the message in cannabis. What they care about is Louis Vuitton and Gucci and big watches and ego. And really hats off to them, because what they've done is they've brought the same practices of every other entrepreneur in corporate America, which is to core out the culture and everything of substance in a given lane, market rebrand it, cast yourself as the Steve Jobs of that thing or the Elon Musk of that thing, take all of the credit, run with it, and then, retire in the Maldives while everybody else gets a blue shirt, a name tag, gets paid minimum wage, and has no health care. What we're really seeing is that lane of maximizing profits and caring about weed for the money-making potential. And in that's like every other industry. So we can't really fault Cookies for behaving like every other modern American capitalist for-profit industry that's going on in this country. At the same time, I think we really need to continue to ask ourselves, why are we in the cannabis lane? What is cannabis about? And if we believe it's about more than just making money and generational wealth and an exit plan and all of this stuff that to me just makes no sense at all, I think we need to continue to be stewards and voice this. Because where are we going to exit to, man? There's one earth, there's one family, there's nowhere we can actually go. So I think it's time to stop crafting exit plans and start crafting plans for stable success in inhabiting this planet, and getting back to a model where we try to hand to our children something that is better than we got it, so they can then also hand that thing to their children in a shape that is better than they got it, and we can become something more like stewards of the earth and have a life that has a depth and a meaning and a connection, something more than name brand merchandise and $50,000 watches.
He was trying to hand something to his children. Some clothing.
Oh boy. Oh man. Hey, on that, Josh in the chat. Josh in the chat brings up an interesting comment. He says, people approach the cookie store all the time thinking it's a bakery that sells cookies. And on